Thank you. Great 2 days. It's really been a very interesting time here. I've had some perceptions change. Love to see where the AI thing's going. Some great store designs. The whole industry is rising, and that's very exciting as a whole. So who am I? What is Event Network? Like, I'm surprised as many of you guys even show up for somebody you've never heard of. So what do we do? What do I do? So if you are exiting through the gift shop, this may be your child there, like clinging to your leg, wanting that thing. We operate those retail spaces. Hopefully, this isn't what's happening. You know, like mom and dad are like, you know, high fives. Kids got all their stuff. Everybody's super excited, and they've got tons of stuff they're taking home with them. They've created a lot of memories in that space, and everybody's really happy. So, Event Network as a company runs and operates these retail spaces under the umbrella of those organizations: zoos, aquariums, museums, towers, resort hospitality, things like that. And over my career, I've had opportunity to work with quite a few different places. It's a really long list. Lists are kind of boring. We're going to move on. By the way, I have a tendency, I get really excited about store design, and I have a tendency to go faster and faster, and my voice goes higher and higher. So hopefully we'll try to stay away from this Adam and the Chipmunks presentation today as I move through this. So some boundaries for this is kind of what is experiential retail design? And in your mind, you might be thinking like, okay, this is how we quantify it. This is what it is, maybe this is what it's not. And the problem with that is that list is going to evolve. It might not ever be the same. Retail inherently is an experience. So how do we better define what this is? And this is really the best definition I could come up with. It's an evolving expectation that breaks the cultural norms of retail. It's never going to be the same, but we're always going to be trying to do it better so that our guests, and by the way, in our industry we call them guests. We've got our athletes, our customers. I may interchange them throughout the presentation. But that is, what we're really, this goal is we're trying to create this better experience, something that engages them, something that's going to drive their decision to buy a product and engage with the brand in a better way. So how do we do this? Well, we do this through storytelling. This is the easiest and best way for engagement, and to effectively tell a story, we need to start at a targeted reality. We can't just start like, in something that doesn't make sense. For example, we've got our Dick's House of Sport, and let's say you walk in and hovering in front of you is like this zombie octopus with a table of Funko Pops and books. Like, that doesn't mean anything to you, right? You'd have to have some sort of context for that to make sense. And so we have to start at this place where people understand where the journey you're going to take them on. So who did this first? Like, who was one of the better of these groups? And Radio Shack, if you're thinking of somebody else who maybe did it earlier, like maybe just keep that to yourself. But they kind of had the original experience. They created a living room space, brought in this really nice casework. They put up this really fancy audio equipment. You got to hear it, you got to see it, and at the end of the day, it's like, this is so aspirational. I have to take this home. You've created the starting point for the journey, which is their life and trying to make it better. And you brought them in, and now you've engaged them in that interesting way. That preceded, as we go into the 80s, this mashing up of all these businesses into malls. You're pushing people closer and closer, and they're having to differentiate and create these really interesting experiences. And so you just have like these really thematic, fun brands rise, some of which survive, some of which did not evolve appropriately, and their products became irrelevant over time. But a really interesting time. And of this, my favorite is Banana Republic. And I'm curious, has anyone in here actually experienced one of the original Banana Republic stores? Yes, love this. You come in here and it's like you have to see every corner, right? It's got this like palpable energy. If you went to a grand opening, you'd find that they had hired like an older British gentleman in his white colonial safari gear to greet you. So you get this really sense of kind of European adventure and again, very aspirational. I'll use that word a lot here. But Gap bought them, and they decided to sort of strip this away. and it's really interesting because I think to myself, like, okay, what could have this been had they kind of stayed here in this area? I think, you know, an easy direction as they evolve, because we all have to evolve to stay relevant, is maybe kind of going direction of, you know, staying on this path. If you're familiar with Filson, it's a great sort of outdoor brand, higher quality goods, leather. You know, maybe time goes on, and because people are spending time outside, they start to become a little more eco-conscious, as we see with brands that have been outside for a while. Maybe it becomes a little bit more technical gear. But of course, we're getting into the 90s. For you car guys there's a Jeep back there, which totally does not mesh with English. So we've got to bring in our Camel Trophy Edition Discovery, because that's pretty awesome. But of course, we've got to cancel that, like our Ivory Tusks, because, you know, smoking's not cool. So we'll bring in a newer Discovery, but unfortunately, to find out, like, this is one of the worst cars ever bought, and it's super unreliable. And so, you know, we end at a really fun Defender, and now we've got like this really interesting palette that tells this really interesting story. It's a great place to bring in your products, and it's just something that when you walk up, you're like, I got to go in there and I got to see everything, right? So we've shown this here. We got a little bit of storytelling happening, this starting point, and Banana Republic recently, you know, within the last few years, you know, like the new Banana Republic, right? Well, you know, I don't know. It's a little sterile, and so it's a sad departure. I know it's been a good business unit for them over the years, and so I'm not going to, you know, try to tell you that they made the right decision or wrong decision. I'm not part of that, but, you know, think about like where the inspiration come for this. You know, at least they didn't pull it directly from a competitor, but maybe not like the best place. But it's pretty much, it feels like almost like a knockoff, right? So as we start to think about other people, there's a few other brands. Like if you think here, like, what brand is this? Well, it's not one brand. That's 4 different brands. You wouldn't know which one you're in just by looking at a photo, which is sad. We've got a REI there, Eddie Bauer, backcountry.com's going in to the physical space. We've got a Cotopaxi. And so it's, you know, where's the storytelling happening here? So we'll look at Eddie Bauer. Kind of took almost the same trajectory, a really strong brand over the years. I don't know if anybody knows this, does like Eddie Bauer actually sell climbing gear? I don't know. It's a really cool, I mean, it's a beautiful store, and it's an interesting space, but I don't know what that really does for their brand. And so as we talk about how brands kind of get here, you know, we talk about optimization that happens, this tendency to want to make things better incrementally. You know, I'm sure they've got these inflection points where they create these new prototypes, and they see this, you know, immediate boost in sales because they're sitting on the foundation of this amazing brand. But what's happening is their brand's eroding out from underneath them. So these individual incremental growths are over time as an aggregate are actually starting to lower, and they're diminishing their value. It's so interesting too, because with them, as you look back, it's like every few years they are releasing like the Lake Tahoe, you know, flagship. It's like they want to be their original brand, but they just can't seem to find a way to get it out into the stores, which is where it would, you know, it would be very successful. So this is one where I'm like, this is the biggest tragedy, but we'll get there. So I am obsessed with Cotopaxi, have loved them so much. You can see I've got my bag up here. I take everywhere. And I was trying to think, like, how many miles do I have in that bag? It's got to be well over 250,000 miles of traveling in that bag. It's a great piece. It's so bright. They started as a B corporation, so they've got these great social and ecological programs associated with it. It's like the only really like great brand that's out of Salt Lake too. So I've got that. You know, it's my hometown, and so I just love this. And I'll make a really bold statement here about Cotopaxi. And that is that I think they are the most distinct, recognizable brand right now on the market. And I will say that as if you're familiar with the brand, you see somebody at the end of a beach, they're maybe wearing a backpack, you got somebody on the other side of a stadium wearing a jacket, you may have never even seen those models before, and you instinctively know that they are wearing Cotopaxi. You know, they may be far enough away and they're wearing their little fanny pack. You can't see the brand, but you're like, I know I didn't even know they made fanny packs. You know, I didn't even know they made fanny packs until now. You know they make fanny packs now, right? So it's a great brand. So what would a store like for them look like when you've got something that's like so special and distinct and different? it almost makes me like a little bit angry inside, to be honest. It's so sad, right? You've got this really great sort of like Latin colors and textures. There's no reason when you walk into a mall, and this is the far end, maybe you can't even see their sign, that you shouldn't know that, you should be sure that that's Cotopaxi down there. It could be so bright and colorful. Just a few minutes of brainstorming would get you the start of a great story, bringing in those textures, telling those stories internally. So I'll stop there before I go too far down that rabbit hole. So we started to see this importance of storytelling along with brands and how that's going to push us forward through these spaces. It's where our products become more than a product. Our stores and our brands really start to imprint their value. And underneath this umbrella, we're able to tell these like really interesting, unexpected stories that are maybe whimsical, try new things. We even go on the edge of ridiculous, which is really fun when we can play in that space. So to illustrate this point, I recently, just a week ago, got home from a 12-day overlanding trip. We started near Mexico and followed the Continental Divide all the way up to Canada. And for you that don't know what overlanding is, it's just like a really fancy way of saying that I lived out of my car like a homeless person for 12 days, but very intentionally. Went with some friends that I knew really well. We wanted to have like some, as doing it, we need like really reliable gear. So I've been working on a car for a few years to get us there, snuck this in earlier, and want to do a lot of route planning. There would be not like a whole lot of service where we went. So we're starting to build this story, right? This is more from a word standpoint, but you're starting to get like this understanding. There's visual pieces, but this kind of feels like the new Banana Republic. It's a little bit expected. So let me tell you, this is not actually the story, the actual story, and I promise you this is it. Same 12-day trip, 3,500 miles along a trail that very few people try to tackle. I did it with 5 people that I met online, because that couldn't go wrong, right? No way that would go wrong. My vehicle, which I did sneak in earlier, which is actually not that one, it's this one, which is the most unreliable vehicle that Land Rover ever made, which I could not get parts for anywhere along the trail. And the morning that I left had 5 system faults showing up on my dash. I was like, this is definitely a recipe for adventure. My wife is like, this is reckless, actually. Potato, potato. And why get your gear from somebody who makes good gear when you can just build it, right? I'm a designer. I want it to be my own. And since you've already met these people that you didn't know anywhere, you might as well have them plan the route, because there's no better place than like Murder Camp, Montana, for him to take you to along this trip. So I spend my time working on a new badge, because the official one's kind of ugly, and I've got to have a cool badge if I'm going to do this. So now we've got like this story, right? We've taken something that was a little bit more expected, was still like an interesting thing, but we've dived down. We've now been able to create something that really draws people in. You want people to draw people into the space. But here's the thing, right? On the night that I got to New Mexico for the very first night, here's the kicker, I had never actually overlanded a night in my life. So that was my first night there, out on this 12-day journey, right? Like, you have to know what happens. And to be honest, like, any of you guys could do this, right? Like, any of you guys could go out and get a junky car and meet some people you've never found before, and just head out in the mountains and have probably the same experience. But we've brought the story down to this point also where now you can bring yourself into it. You're imagining yourself with the story. It's not so far off as the other one, which was interesting, but flaws, things like that have a tendency to drive engagement within spaces. So how does this work within a store? Well, we recently partnered with Stranger Things. Again, as I talked about, we do this for a lot of people. In the background, we run the store. It's all our product, all of our employees here. And so the easy store here would just be Starcourt. I'm assuming you all know what Stranger Things is. In one of the last seasons, this was a significant place. And so this is an easy grab. We've got all these different bays. We can sort of theme them out. People are going to come and buy things, and stuff's going to fly off the shelves, we just know, because it's such a great brand. But could we do better than that? Of course we can do better. So instead of just Starcourt, we're going to really immerse you in the storyline. So we're going to start you off in Joyce's family room. And this is a temporary thing, so it's a little bit unfinished in the ceilings and things like that. But you're able to go into these spaces. You're able to pull the products up off the shelves. You're associating really closely with the items in here. You're sitting on the couch. Maybe you're getting some selfies along the way. And next thing you're doing is you've moved into the arcade. You got like this sense of nostalgia. You're really getting a feel for the story, getting excited. You got like lots of serotonin now flooding your brain. There's lots of really technical parts of retail design, which we are not going to get in today because pretty pictures are way more fun to look at. But as we start to make intentional decisions to make that happen, you're finding yourself at Hawkins High. You got such great team spirit. Next thing you know, you're off to the register with your Hellfire Club T-shirt and a bunch of other products, and you're happy. You're happy you were able to be part of this experience and take these home as part of these memories and enjoy them in your life with other people. And this is that power of storytelling. And what's interesting is that the Netflix story doesn't really make sense if you don't have the jumping off point in reality. If you're somebody traveling from overseas and you see your zombie octopus with Funko and books, right? You're like, Americans are what? I mean, we knew they were bad, but this is like next level, people, right? You walk in this room, but Vecna now makes sense within this context. And so this is that important part of knowing where your audience is going to start and that intentional, super intentional journey that you're going to take them on. The piece of this is that I truly believe that great stories out of context have to be uncomfortable. Say again. Great stories out of context should be uncomfortable because otherwise it's just boring. Like if you come into a space, they don't know what to expect, but it's just like standard. Like that, there's nothing special there. You have to create a journey for them, a starting point along those lines to create really great retail and build that brand identity and customer engagement. How far is too far? I have yet to see somebody go too far. I mean, that's it just hasn't happened yet. If you did it well, it always pays off, and these types of things always work out. So that is my presentation.
Wonderful, Adam. Thank you so much. Thank you for going out on a limb like that and also sort of putting your personal touch to it. Really appreciate it. Looking at that last concept reminds me kind of, do you know Meow Wolf at all by any chance?
Love Meow Wolf.
Yeah, and I see there's a lot of those kind of experiential concepts sprouting up. I guess, do you feel like retailers could sort of explore this idea of discovery within a space more, even if they're not doing something like that? And do you think that's a really untapped kind of area?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the best tools as a store designer is thinking about that customer journey throughout an entire space. You've got to give them a reason to go throughout an entire area. It's got to sort of change and evolve in complementary ways. I love the Omega Mart. It fits a little bit different because the intent of that store, which is super immersive, I will give them that, was really the driving force of that was actually the experience. They could probably do a much better job if they really wanted that to be a productive retail space also. But a beautiful brand. I love the things they do, for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Adam. Great.
So don't you ever lose your